Hello everyone, my name is Havian and today I want to be talking to you about Sword Art Online Hollow Realization. I did want to get this video done a lot earlier, but I was waiting to see if any new information was going to get released during the Bandai Namco livestream that happened recently. They didn't really say anything new, but it was nice speaking to some of you guys in the chat. And for those of you that are in there asking me when I'm going to stream again, don't worry, that's coming soon. But for this video, I'm going to be going over the blacksmithing system, the world, and some more details about the characters. Parts of the weapon upgrading in this game may feel familiar to some people that did play Hollow Fragment, but it is much deeper than it was before, and they're taking a totally different direction with it. Now, just like in Hollow Fragment, you are going to be able to find treasure chests in the field, and those treasure chests are going to contain weapons, armor, and other bits of equipment. And with some of the treasure chests that hide better items, they're going to be guarded by some enemies that you'll need to kill before you can open the chest. And generally, this is how you're going to be finding most of your equipment. And just like in Hollow Fragment, the different weapons you find are going to have different rarities attached. And it seems like the rarity in this game is indicated by the amount of stars it has on its image. Now, what I don't know is whether or not the same weapon can be found in different rarity levels, or if the rarity levels are going to be set per weapon. But if they do keep it anything like Hollow Fragment, even though you're finding a weapon with a similar name, the stats on it may be totally different. So there may be a lot of randomization going on within those treasure chests. And that means you'll probably want to come back to some of these treasure chests to find the best version of whatever you got from there previously. But what I don't know about Hollow Realization is whether or not they've implemented more of a stricter lockout for some of these treasure chests. With Hollow Fragment, it was pretty easy to cheat the system and farm these treasure chests. But I'm wondering with Hollow Realization if they're going to implement strict timers on these treasure chests, so you can't actually go back and open them even if you've left the areas. Another thing I've noticed about some of the equipment is on the right hand side of it, some of them say that it's untradeable. And it has a number next to it that probably indicates the amount of times it could be traded. Now, my assumption with this is probably if you're playing online and equipment drops while you're playing with other people online, you probably have a set amount of times you can trade it while you're with those people in the party. Let's say your whole party finds a treasure chest and you all get different bits of equipment, but the best one is probably better suited for someone else's in the party. I'm assuming you're able to trade that item to another character, but then once you've traded it, it'll probably lock it out and say that it's now untradeable. I don't think anything's been confirmed about that, but I'm just assuming that's the way it's going to be from that little bit of information. Now, in terms of blacksmithing, from what I can tell, Elizabeth can still do some blacksmithing, but there are loads of other blacksmiths within the world as well. It seems like the basic equipment grind or the weapon upgrading loop is you'll need to find a treasure chest and defeat the boss that's guarding it, take the weapon from that chest, then you'll need to bring it to a blacksmith, and that blacksmith will be able to tell you what items you'll need to actually upgrade that bit of equipment. Then you'll need to go out into the world and find the materials that you'll need, and then you bring it back to the blacksmith and do your upgrading. But when you visit a blacksmith, you're going to have a few different options available to you. You'll be able to strengthen your weapon, you'll be able to evolve your weapon, and you'll be able to check the list of skills that that blacksmith has. When it comes to upgrading your weapon, you'll need to find ores, and you'll need to get certain drops from monsters to actually do some upgrading. Some of them are going to be rarer than others. One thing they do make slightly easier for you is they do list on the world map where you'll need to go to find a particular monster, so you get a rough idea of where you'll need to hunt to find a certain material for your equipment. From what I can tell so far, the maximum weapon level seems to be +9, but that's something that could increase before release or something they add in patches. When you are strengthening a weapon, there is a chance to fail, but it doesn't let you know your chance of success in a percentage on the screen. But if you do fail, then you end up losing your materials. The rarer your weapon is, then the more money and materials you're going to need to upgrade it. Another form of upgrading is weapon evolution. Weapons can be evolved into a more advanced version. And just like strengthening, evolution also has a percentage-based chance for success. And you're also going to need materials to evolve the weapon, and these can be lost as well if you fail. But it does seem like if you're going to do weapon evolution, you'll need to find rarer materials. So with weapon evolution, you'll find your base weapon, then you'll check how much money it costs to upgrade it. Then from what I can tell, it seems like you'll be able to see the basic version of what it will evolve into. Then you'll see the required materials and the success chance it has for the evolution. And then if the evolution is successful, you'll see the results and any extra bonus stats that were gained from the evolution. Now, if all of this is right, what I'm not sure is whether or not the weapon will keep the stats for every evolution it takes. For example, if this weapon evolves into another stage, will it keep the extra stats it just gained? Or will it lose them and gain totally different stats on the next evolution? That's kind of what I'm wondering. And the next bit of important information about blacksmiths is the skill list. Each blacksmith has different stats and different skills. Some of these skills are going to have positive effects and some of them are going to have negative, and these can affect the outcome of your weapon. So it seems like you need to find the right blacksmith in the world for the type of weapon you're trying to create. But from the looks of things, the more you use a blacksmith, it seems like the higher their blacksmithing level will get. But these blacksmiths are going to be dotted all over the world, and it seems like the higher leveled ones will be able to create and upgrade the legendary weapons for you. So it seems like with the blacksmithing system, you'll find a weapon that you really enjoy, then you'll be able to upgrade it as much as possible as you progress through the game. So it seems like this blacksmithing system is going to be a bit of a change from the one they had in Hollow Fragment, but from the looks of things, this seems much deeper than it was in Hollow Fragment as well, which may add to the replayability. Now the next bit of information to go through is about the world and the characters. In some of my past videos, there was a bit of a confusion about the way this world is going to be. A lot of people still assume that it's going to be the original Sword Art Online world, but this world is slightly different. This is a different game from Sword Art Online. Hollow Realization is based in a game called Sword Art Origin, and rather than being a floating tower, it is one flat world map. But from what I've seen of this map, it does seem like the game is going to be pretty huge in terms of the areas. On the world map, from what we can see, there's going to be different areas and different locations. They have shown us a few of these different locations, but I'm assuming there's a lot more that we haven't seen yet. And once you go into one of these areas, it seems like that area is going to be broken up into even smaller zones. And it does seem like within each of those zones, there's going to be different bosses to kill, different events to run into, and different things to see. But with that being said, it does seem like there were a few hints of some sort of floating tower or some sort of floating dungeon being formed in the sky. I guess we're going to have to play the game to find out exactly what that is for ourselves. For those of you that didn't play Hollow Fragment, I will say that game was a pretty unforgiving game, and it does seem like a few elements of that are still going to remain in Hollow Realization. In what appears to be like the very first area of the game, you can run into a level 95 boss at level 2, and there's pretty much no chance of you actually killing it at that level. So at that point in the game, the only thing you can really do is avoid it or die. I'm assuming they put that in the very first area of the game just to let people know that as they go through the game, there's going to be other enemies like that as well, and they should pay attention for them. And to let the players know that just because you've seen an enemy, it doesn't mean you can kill it at that point. You need to come back to it when you're stronger, which is honestly something I like. But one thing I'm not sure about is whether or not these high level bosses that appear, or these episode bosses that appear, are rare events for these areas or if they're always there. And there is one thing that I should mention that wasn't really clear in some of the earlier builds of the game, but it does seem like you'll be able to use all of the different weapon types right from the beginning. In some of the earlier videos that I made, some of the weapon types were missing from the equipment list, but it does seem like in this build that they showed at TGS, everything seems to be there at this point, apart from dual wielding. I'm assuming dual wielding will be some sort of quest, or it's going to be something that they added a little bit later on in the game. Even though dual wielding was fun in the previous games, it does seem like it was used as a crutch because it was really powerful. But in my opinion, it is a bit of a smart move for them to leave it as something you unlock later on, so people can actually try the different weapon types, unlock the skills for those weapon types, and see if those weapons actually fit their playstyle. Now we've seen that Hollow Realization is more of an action-based game and a more of an active game than Hollow Fragment. And in Hollow Fragment, on your character you usually have a main skill and a secondary skill. The main skill was usually the weapon you had equipped, and the secondary skill is usually either blocking with your shield or evasion. But since that's something you do manually in this game, that's not going to go in the secondary slot. The thing that will go in your secondary slot is going to be your extra skill. And the extra skills function as a party role for your character. In Hollow Fragment there were party roles, but they were kind of restricted to the multiplayer side of the game, and the only thing they really done was just affect your stats. But in Hollow Realization, it does seem like they're going to give you an actual role, because just like your weapon, you'll need to increase the mastery of that role, and you'll need to unlock extra skills through the skill tree of that particular role. Now from what I've seen, not all of the classes that were in Hollow Fragment are available at the moment, but it does seem like some of the old ones are returning, and it does seem like some new ones are going to be there as well. Now I'm not too sure if it was their intention during the TGS stream, but I did manage to catch the character classes for your partner characters. Asuna's going to use the rapier, and she's going to be an attacker class, which is more of a DPS. Then we have Silica, who's going to be using the dagger, and she's a healer. Elizabeth uses the mace, and she's a tank. Leafa uses the sword, and she's an attacker as well. Sinon uses the spear, and she's a buffer. Straya uses the two-handed sword, and she is a tank. Philia uses the dagger, and she is an attacker. Argo uses the dagger, and she's a buffer. Yuki uses the sword, and she is an attacker. Klein uses the katana, and he is an attacker. Ego uses the axe, and he's a tank. And Premier uses the rapier, and she's the healer. Now my hope is that the AI actually fill their roles well within the party, and they're not slightly brain dead like they were in Hollow Fragment. And I'm hoping that the emotion void system actually plays a big role in how you can actually customize that character within that party role. So I guess now that you have a vague idea of what the party roles are going to be, if they don't change it by the time the game's released, that is, I guess you can start thinking about the characters you'll want to have in your party. If you don't want to use the other like 280 characters in the game, that is. So far the character classes that I've seen myself are the attacker, the healer, the buffer, the tank, the scout, and one new one that I haven't actually seen before. It's one that's called the Underworld Sword or maybe the Hades Sword. Now this was not a class that was in Hollow Fragment, and I have no idea what the stats are for it, but I'm assuming this is part of the Greatsword tree. And I can't confirm what it is, but maybe it's going to be some sort of a class that focuses on debuffs, or maybe some sort of a Berserker or Dark Knight kind of class where you consume your own HP to deal more damage. I have no idea what it's going to be for, but just know there's an Underworld Sword or a Hades type class. No idea what it's going to end up being at release, but it's in there. But if that's not exactly what the name says, let me know. Because from what I can tell, it's not the same name as Debuffer in Hollow Fragment. It does have a totally different name. And from what I can tell, that name seems to be the Underworld Sword or the Hades Sword. Or maybe I need to dig a little bit deeper and see what's inside of the extra skills trees. Because maybe the extra skills have an advanced version of their class within their own skill tree. It'll be interesting to see if that's the case. But I'm assuming all the classes from Hollow Fragment will be in there and some new ones as well. Now there was another thing that was causing confusion with this game, and it's where is this game within the Sword Art Online timeline? Quite a while back they did release a timeline saying where Hollow Realization is, and it happens after Lost Song. But if anyone needs some reassurance or more of a confirmation from that, there was an interview done by a couple of Pixels, where the producer of the game did go over this in more detail. And he says, the story of Hollow Realization is 100% original, is not inspired or taken from the anime. Chronologically, it begins after the events recounted in the last game, Lost Song. Of course we want the story to fit the universe of Sword Art Online, so we kept the main features of this universe. And as such, Hollow Realization is part of Sword Art Online, even if the story we tell is totally new and exclusive. So for those of you that did need a bit of reassurance that this was taking place after Lost Song, there it is. The stories of the games usually continue after each other, but they loosely connected with the previous ones. So if you didn't play the previous games in the series, the only thing you'd really miss is the characters' histories and how they actually ended up meeting. But generally the main storylines of the games are self-contained. So you shouldn't need to feel too intimidated if Hollow Realization is your first game. And another thing I've touched on in the past is Hollow Realization's ties to Final Fantasy. I've said before that the producer of Final Fantasy XIV and the producer of the Sword Art Online games did get together and have a little chat, and they did do an interview together sharing their ideas. But both of the Sword Art Online games within the Hollow range of games have been influenced by the Final Fantasy games for that current period. So Hollow Fragment was directly influenced by Final Fantasy XI, and Hollow Realization is directly influenced by Final Fantasy XIV. Now there was an interview that went into greater detail about this, and this is what the producer of Sword Art Online Hollow Realization had to say. In the previous Sword Art Online titles, my reference was Final Fantasy XI. But for Hollow Realization, I can't find a better reference than Final Fantasy XIV, with its skill system and the new ideas it brought to the world of Japanese MMORPGs. But of course, our influences are not confined to these two titles. I have experience in a wide variety of MMORPGs, and I try to integrate all this knowledge into the gameplay of Hollow Realization. Of course, just like Lost Song, Hollow Realization is a game that favors action and dynamic combat. So we try to strike a balance between MMORPG and action-oriented combat. Now the most obvious indicators that it's taken influence from Final Fantasy XIV are the dynamic events when you're running around in the world, parts of the UI, and the enemy attack indicators that appear on the ground. I haven't played Final Fantasy XIV in a very long time, so there are probably a few more influences that people that are still currently playing the game can actually pick out. But if you can see some more, let me know in the comments, I'm curious. And finally, this isn't something that was gone over in TGS, but this is old information, because this was something that was causing a bit of confusion for people that are interested in playing this game. And that comes down to the character creation and who are you playing as. In this game, you're playing through the eyes of Kirigaya Kazuto, who is better well known for his in-game character named Kirito. During the main storyline of this game, you can still use the default Kirito avatar, or you can choose to create your own avatar that he will control while he's playing the game. If you played Lost Song, you would know that there were some scenes that were shown from within the game, and some when they were shown logged out of the game, just going about their daily lives. So there's a chance that this game may do exactly the same thing. But with Lost Song, during the game, you could play as any of the other characters that were in the game, but if the story needs you to switch character, it would force you back into control of Kirito. But in Hollow Realization, you're going to be playing as Kirito for the whole time. But the main thing is you can either use the default Kirito character, or you can create your own character and give it its own name, and within the game world, you'll be addressed as that character. For those of you that did play Hollow Fragment, this should be familiar to you, but for those of you that played Lost Song, this is a bit different. So that could cause a bit of confusion. So I guess the main thing you need to take away from who are you playing as in Hollow Realization, you're going to be playing as the person that controls the Kirito character in the games. You are him. You can just create a different character that he controls while he's in the game. Because you are playing as the character that is controlling another character in the game. so the storyline is always going to be through his eyes. So during the CG scenes and the animated scenes, you're going to see the normal Kirito look, but during normal play, you're going to see the character you've created or the default avatar if you've left it as that. But just like in Hollow Fragment, you are free to go and change your character's appearance in your bedroom whenever you feel like it. But that's not all about rooms. It seems like the producer of the game wanted to add character housing or character room customization early in the development, but it was something they couldn't add while they were making the game. But it does seem like he's interested in adding it into the game in the future, which is pretty interesting. It does make it seem like, finally, after 2 different games, it does seem like this game is going to be a foundation where they can constantly update the game and add new things to it. But I am looking forward to seeing what they do with this game in the future, or if they add anything new in the future. And if they do add those things, you can be sure I'm going to let you know. So as usual, if you're not subscribed, then I suggest you do so, because once that news comes out, you can be sure I'm going to dig right into it and let you know all the interesting bits of information. And if you are subscribed, be sure to click the bell so you get notifications. For the people that have been following me on Facebook and Twitter, and the people that are in my Discord server, have been getting nuggets of information up until this video. So if you do want to get the information early, then follow me on Facebook or Twitter, or drop me a message if you want to invite to the Discord server. And if you have no idea what Discord is, it's pretty much a community chat server where everyone can stay in contact easily. It's coming up close to the release of Hollow Realization, so I'm expecting news to slow down, but I'm expecting one more burst of information to come pretty soon. And for those of you that are asking, yes, I am getting the Japanese version, so I'm going to share as much information about that as I can, without sharing any spoilers, like I done with Hollow Fragment. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to be streaming it as well, so make sure you are following me on Twitch. You're able to find all of the links in the description below. Well, apart from Discord. The only way you'll get in Discord is by asking me directly or being in my Twitch stream. I will be making some more videos very soon. They may not all be Sword Art Online related, but there's going to be some more Sword Art Online stuff coming soon too. But until I make those videos, I'll see you all later.